My next guest is the legal affairs correspondent for National Public Radio. She's also the person who broke the Anita Hill story. Please welcome Anita Totenberg, folks. We're talking Rodney King. What else? What's your take on that whole verdict there?
Well, it seems to me at least that it shows one of the perils of having a jury with no black people on it.
Yeah, that was the first mistake, right? Crazy.
Well, if there had been black people on that jury, either the verdict would have been different or it would have been more credible, one or the other.
Yeah, but as soon as the big problem, moving it to Simi Valley, obviously. I guess the base of potential black jurors out there is almost negligible,
yeah,
right?
It's very small. As I understand it, there were only 6 potential black jurors in the whole jury pool of, I think, close to 200.
God, and the defense attorneys have more passes than 6 anyway, don't they? Or aren't they allowed to pass on so many, out of hand?
They can, although the Supreme Court has said that you can't strike all minority jurors without giving a reason that's other than race.
Mm-hmm. Well, on another story that is near and dear to you, another inequity on the sex level, you were the first one to, how did you exactly come across the information? Or you can't reveal, I guess.
Dennis, you want to know?
I know.
You want to know what their special prosecutor who
I know, they just called you
me.
in for that.
Well, you know, he issued his report today.
Yeah, what did he say about you?
He said he couldn't figure out how I found out.
And you're not telling.
And I'm not telling, and he spent a lot of the taxpayers' money trying to find out. But, of course, it's not really his fault. It's the Senate's fault. They're the ones that... I wouldn't have had a story if they'd done their job.
Yeah. Well, it's just out of hand. Biden was going to pass on even looking into that, wasn't he, until the uproar?
He was not going to look into it at all. He finally did ask the White House to send out some FBI investigators after some of the members of his committee found out about it and said he couldn't pass on it completely. And even then, the report that came back from the FBI was only shown to the members of the Senate committee, I think, an hour before they were due to vote.
And then Biden becomes a crusader. That's what bugs me. He was going to take a big pass on it, and then when the cameras went on, all of a sudden he becomes the voice of reason. I can't believe he scored political points in that.
That was a pretty incredible hearing where you had all those men lined up there grilling that boy, I'll tell you.
I loved it when
right there.
I loved it when he said anybody who would speak that way to a woman is either in an insane asylum or to my immediate left. Biden said that. Teddy Kennedy's just sitting right there. Unbelievable. Now, you had a big run-in with Alan Simpson, who was one of the guys, didn't you?
Well, we had a disagreement on the street. We were both on Nightline together, and he said that I was a biased reporter and that I didn't have an unbiased bone in my body, and he was not very nice. And then afterwards, when I was getting into the car that they'd sent for me, he came out after me yelling a number of things and wouldn't let me leave.
Yeah, he was freaked out, right?
He was not a happy camper that night. And I responded, perhaps not in kind, but not kindly. But suffice to say that we have buried the hatchet since then. He's apologized. He said, I'm a fine reporter. He said he was acted inappropriately. I've apologized for using a certain 4-letter word. And he was my guest at the radio and TV correspondents' dinner, and he was a very charming dinner companion.
Be careful now. I think he's working that Michael Corleone, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer thing. You got to watch those guys.
He doesn't have enough hair for that.
Whoa, well, you're back on the outs with him after that comment.
No, I think even he would admit he's bald.
Yeah, well, you never know. Those guys don't see it that way. They just call themselves hair impaired. Now, what's this rumor about, there's another story going around, Quayle, marijuana connection? Is this possible? I didn't think you could roll a joint.
I hope so.
Huh?
Jeez.
Well, during the '88 campaign, I got a tip that a prisoner, a federal prisoner, claimed that he had sold marijuana to Dan Quayle when Quayle worked for the State Attorney General's office in Indiana. Now, I got to tell you, I worked very hard on this story for 2 weeks. I interviewed the prisoner. I got a sworn affidavit from him, and I could not corroborate it in any way, shape, or form from anybody reliable. The only people who would corroborate it at all were people who said he told them the same story, but they were all also convicted felons. I mean, my phone was, oh, hello, yes, and what are you in for? I see, thank you.
Weren't exactly reliable sources.
No, and so, and then candidate Quayle absolutely denied the charge, and I have no evidence to believe that it's true, and we never ran the story. But the prisoner was put in solitary just before the election day, isolated from the rest of the prisoners, and he claims that his civil rights were violated in order to keep him from talking in those last days before the election, because he'd called a press conference. When I didn't do the story, and then other reporters didn't do the story, he then called a press conference, and the Bureau of Prisons allowed him to, then canceled the press conference and threw him in solitary. And the Bureau of Prisons now claims that they did that to protect him, and that I had told them that his life was in danger. And I didn't tell them that. So he has a lawsuit against...
They wanted to shut him up for a while until the election was over.
He has a lawsuit. Everybody wants to depose me, meaning take my testimony under oath, and I would just as soon skulk away into the night.
Right. Well, you know, I saw Quayle issue that denial, and during the denial itself, he ingested an entire can of Pringles. So, I don't know what I read into that, but he really woofed him down, and he asked for more. All right, Anita, thanks for coming on. Anita Totenberg, folks. We're going to be back with the tornadoes right after this. The Texas tornado.